How does it feel for me? Sophia, February 2023. Warning, this audio contains someone talking about suicide. How have things been since your last update in November?
My Christmas and New Year was a bit of a disaster, really. Leading up to it, I did an e-consult with my GP, and clearly what I've written was absolute ramble, thinking that everyone was trying to kill me and all this, that and the other. My GP, I can see by the notes, she called the crisis team, and SPA apparently called me, but I have no memory of that. And then about 2 days later after this, I was picked up in an ambulance. Well, I was found actually by somebody on the floor unconscious. With the ambulance crew, I became quite agitated and distressed, and obviously hadn't been sleeping, so I did get quite violent with them all. And then I was taken to Jimmy's to resus and rapid tranked by the consultant. And then I woke up and obviously I was a lot calmer because I just slept. And then this nurse came up to me and she was like, "Oh, you can go now." And obviously I wanted to leave from the get-go. I didn't want to be there, so I was like, "See ya." But nobody intervened, nobody checked on me, nobody had a conversation with me or anything.
After A&E, you had an appointment with Emerge and the crisis team, and you agreed to go to Oasis. What was your experience there?
Part of the deal of being at Oasis is that you have to engage with IS. And the first couple of days was alright, they sent some person and it was all good. But I'd made it very clear from the start that they cannot send this one particular person who turned around to me one time when I was at Oasis and said, quote, "We don't think you're going to kill yourself anyway because you haven't got the balls to," end quote. If you send that person to me, I am not going to engage. But for some reason, the only person that's free, that one person, cannot come anywhere near me. So obviously, the last 3-4 days of Oasis, they keep trying to send this person, and I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. So they don't see me for 4 days. Because of this, there was basically no discharge plan for me when I left Oasis. You know, I need it face to face, I need a conversation, I need to be able to hold them accountable for something. But one of the other problems was they discharged me from Oasis, is that what Oasis wanted to do, because they could see like I was pretty upset about everything, they wanted to refer me to Dalhouse. Now, Dalhouse on the phone verbally said to me it'll be fine, they'll take my referral, but then they rang back shortly after and said no, we can't take your referral. So that was like another final straw for me.
How were you feeling at this point?
I was not well. By this point I'd walked off home to go and overdose like 3 times or something and been taken back by the police. I'd also smacked my head really hard against the wall when I had a flashback. So then I decided that I was going to hang myself. And obviously Oasis staff had to call the police and call the crisis team. I think if I'd have had a discharge plan, I don't think it would have escalated to how it escalated. But because they made me feel so unsettled with like what was happening next and it was stressing me out, that's why I was just like, well, nothing's going to get better then, so I may as well just die.
What happened after the police and crisis team were called?
So then I was taken to the 136 suite, and eventually I was assessed by the mental health people team. So I agreed to go in voluntarily, and I was eventually moved to CAU. I wasn't really getting much decent sleep there, even though I was being given lorazepam, because where I was, my room was right next to 136. So you get all the chaos of all the men like kicking off and stuff, and obviously you can't sleep with that, and it can be quite scary. Yeah, so I ended up trying to hurt myself again. I rang the nurse button in the end, and then I didn't really have like a meeting with all the doctors. I just saw one doctor and this one nurse, and they basically said that I was being discharged because the risk had gone up, which I find ironic because to me the risk had stayed the same, because I'd clearly just tried to hang myself at Oasis, and that wasn't in the hospital.
What was your experience after being discharged from the crisis assessment unit?
When they discharged me, they said, IS will see you now, you'll go into IS's care. And IS had maybe one phone call with me on the Friday, saw me on the Saturday or the Sunday, and then they discharged me and back into emergency care. avoided hospital thus far because I have been using other services like Dial House and Wellbeing Cafe.
What would have made your experience better?
This whole shenanigans could have potentially been avoided because obviously I wrote that e-consult. The GP that rang me isn't the one that knows me very well, but if it had been the one that knows me very well, she would have got me to come in, and then she would have assessed whether she needed to call police or whatever else, or try and get the crisis team to her, or whatever she needed to do. I think doing things over the phone in general, especially if it's like mental health and somebody's literally talking mumbo jumbo at you, like, be concerned. But it's also not just down to the GP. I think when they took me to resus and they decided that I didn't have capacity and they decided that they were going to inject me, where was my follow-up? Why was I not assessed by ALPS? Why did nobody speak to me upon discharge?
What one thing did you value about your care?
When I was at CAU, this nurse who I'd met previously on ward 5 happened to come to this ward that I was on, told me off, and then she gave me a hug. So I valued that because that was nice, because nobody else in the staff had actually bothered to speak to me on CAU.
Thank you to Sophia for sharing her story.